Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Phoenix back with another video. In today's video, we'll look at the fundamentals of piece control. This video will cover topics that'll help players from all skill levels, so I hope you enjoy. Why is piece control the meta? Simply, piece control is the meta for two reasons. One, because you can create a right shoulder peek for yourself and you can force your opponent into taking a bad left shoulder peek. This means that your piece control should be used to create a right shoulder peek, and you should avoid 50-50 aim duels at all costs and avoid left shoulder peeks at an even greater level. The second reason piece control is also meta is because it is a great tool to secure you height. You can use piece control to stop your opponent from grabbing height, and you can get height before them. Next, let's look at the extreme basic level of piece control, and we can build up from there. The most simple form of piece control is coning someone's ramp. This allows you to get height quickly on a fight where you can start to pressure your opponents and try to replace his walls. Replacing walls is the next element of piece control. You want to take his walls from a safe right shoulder peek, and you want to create right shoulder peeks to finish off your opponent. Coning players and taking walls are the two core elements of piece control. From here, let's see how we can expand the range of your piece control to kill players in many different scenarios. The first and probably most important part of expanding the distance of your piece control is your crosshair placement. Getting very familiar with the building grid is extremely important, and you need to be able to have quick edits and build flow so you can quickly combine the upcoming piece control moves. You should be able to quickly place cones over walls by looking right above the wall, and you need to be able to place walls at all ranges within a tile and a little of you. Let's get right into the first strat, and that is side jumps. Side jumping allows you to create a ton of different angles to establish cones and walls that leads to piece control. Being able to quickly side jump and quickly grab walls is an absolute necessity if you want to get good at piece control. Notice how in this clip I side jump and grab two walls, which I couldn't get from my original angle, and I land on a floor before quickly ending the fight. The next piece control move is the high wall. The high wall is used when an enemy is one tile above you and they haven't placed a wall yet. By looking up, you can place this wall and you can create a right shoulder peek for yourself to either go for a shot or to go for more piece control by simply boxing your enemy. Whenever your opponent is trying to take high ground, try to get a lot of high walls on him to try and catch the enemy by surprise and end the fight quickly. What's great about these many piece control techniques is the fact that you can combine them together. You can side jump and hit a high wall at the same time, establishing yourself piece control in one move. High walls are also useful in another scenario. That is when your opponent is trying to escape their box. If your opponent is trying to leave their 1x1, you can also place a high wall, giving you time to get up and reclaim high ground before your opponent. In this clip, the player uses a high wall to block an enemy's escape route, and then he uses another high wall to finish off the kill. The next piece control tip is the sidewall. The sidewall is used when your opponent is running out to the side of his box. You can quickly place this wall out to the side and edit it to get big damage on your opponent. You can also use sidewalls after you high wall someone to continue to establish piece control on a player. In this clip, the player gets a high wall and then a sidewall next to it, forcing the enemy onto his wall where he cleans up the kill quickly. And the last wall we will talk about is the low wall. This is a little less used but still very useful. The low wall is used when an enemy doesn't have a wall placed in his box and you are on high ground. If you look all the way down, you can grab this wall without needing to drop down into the box. Where this becomes very useful is in chaotic endgames. Oftentimes loot isn't safe to get because it is too open to drop into and you don't know if there are any players lurking around. You can use low walls to establish control of a box and claim the loot safely in endgames. Next, let's look at building through walls. I want to separate the section into two parts. The first way to build through walls is to place unclaimed builds in a box when you break a floor or wall. In the small amount of time in between when you break a build and when your enemy replaces said build, you can place a few things through the build piece. Doing this will allow you to create control inside of your enemy's box. When you approach a box, identify what builds are missing. In this clip, I see the enemy is missing the center wall and his cone, so I build through his wall, getting piece control. Next, let's move on to exploiting builds through walls. If you get the right crosshair placement, you can build straight through walls without taking any risk. Let me show you how to do each wall and the cones in any box. The easiest way to get a cone in a box is by looking below the box. If there's an air pocket below the box, you can place a cone in the box by simply looking below it. Now let's get into the more complicated exploits. To get a ramp or cone in a box when there isn't an air pocket below the floor, look at this log in the wood wall and crouch into it while looking left. I use wood here because it's easiest to explain, but once you learn to do it quickly on wood walls, you can easily do it on brick and metal walls. You can get the left wall in the box by looking at this log and crouching at the wall, and you can get the back wall by looking at this log and crouching at the wall. If you want to get the top cone, you need to be on a sideways ramp and you need to look here while crouching. Right now, there's no known way to get the right wall, but you can sidewall this as there's only one exit and you can quickly finish the fight. Now you know how to establish piece control on your opponents, but sometimes your opponent still might escape. You want to make your opponent move around so you can put him in your piece control. But how do you predict your opponent? When you approach an enemy, identify where he can leave his box. You can set up your piece control at these exits, and you also want to identify where your opponent can go. Let's look at a few examples of this. Let's look at one more example. In this fight, Noah Riley cones the enemy and knows his only exit is down. Noah Riley then places a low wall, and he was able to quickly finish off the kill. In your fights, focus on what your opponent's exit options are, and try to either block them or plan to block them if the enemy goes for an exit. Next, let's look at how you can counter piece control with counter piece control. Counter piece control is making sure that you block off the angles where your opponent can piece control you from. This means always having a cone in your box and creating space for yourself to work with. Another important aspect of counter piece control is creating an exit option for yourself. This exit option is created by placing builds that allow you to escape from your position if your opponent goes for piece control on you. This can be as simple as placing a wall to your side or behind you to edit out on so you don't get trapped in all enemy builds. Ideally, you should try to create an exit option that puts you as far away from your enemy as possible. If you try to exit out the top, you might get your cone shot out, and if you exit out the sides, your opponent can get your walls and piece you out. Almost always you want to expand backwards away from your opponent because your opponent can't get control of any of your builds at this range, and it gives you time to reset and pop heals or to go for height. In this example, notice how I grab these walls before I engage the fight. Later in the fight, I use these walls to escape and survive the fight. The final element of prediction is cone flooring, where an enemy is running. If an enemy is running away from his box, you can get the top control before your opponent, allowing you to quickly finish the kill. Finally, let's look at a couple good edits to give yourself a right shoulder peek. First is the peanut butter edit. This is your bread and butter edit. This should be one of your go-to edits for finishing off a fight. It is important that you finish the edit behind the wall and jump and strafe to the left to avoid the most damage. Next edit you want to use is the window edit. The window edit is good because you can always create a safe right shoulder peek to help establish safe piece control and to get shots on your opponent. Make sure that you strafe into the window and then crouch down to the left to avoid return damage. These are the two main edits that you should return to every time. The most important part to getting good at piece control though is good mechanics. You don't need crazy sway retakes or the ability to float players, as these serve no purpose in the game. But you should be able to comfortably do all the tricks I showed above, and you should be able to combine all of the different piece control techniques into a fluid motion. If you're not at that level yet, it's okay, but you should focus specifically on the above mentioned tricks in your free builds, 1v1s, and arena, and I promise your piece control will get better. I hope you enjoyed the video. If this video does well, I have many other Fortnite Fundamental episodes already planned in my head. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you want more educational content like this in the future, make sure to subscribe and follow my Twitch and Twitter linked in the description. Also, make sure to check out my coaching website if you're interested in getting private coaching, linked in the description. Peace.